Our special guest today is Mark Taylor. He's author of the fascinating book, The Trump Prophecies, and the book has now become a movie which will be released next week in 1,200 movie theaters next Tuesday, October 2nd. In November 2016, the world witnessed the impossible. Nearly every household in America was tuned into the election, and all the polls said that Donald J. Trump would lose. When the map of the states flipped red in the final hour, there was a select few who weren't surprised. They always known that Trump was going to win, and he was chosen for such a time as this because the prophecy said so. But Trump's victory was only the beginning. What is coming next for the most powerful nation on earth today? Mark Taylor has written 23 prophetic messages, many which have come true and many still to come. He's here with us today. Without further ado, welcome Mark Taylor to Rogue News.
Thank you for having me, guys. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on your show.
Well, Mark, first and foremost, can you share with the audience what is prophecy and how do these messages come to you and what do you do with them?
Prophecy is all throughout the Bible, and there's a difference between a prediction and prophecy. A prediction comes from the intellect or mind of man, basically. A prophecy comes from the Spirit of God himself. Jesus himself is the Spirit of prophecy. So when the Holy Spirit gives you something, it's like the Apostle Paul. He sat down and put pen to paper, started writing out what the Holy Spirit was telling him. That's kind of how I operate. I operate a little bit differently in the prophetic than most people do. A lot of people will grab a microphone or something like that, and they'll start prophesying what they're hearing the Lord saying. I operate a little bit differently. I operate through more of the written word, so to speak. And what happens is the Lord will start dealing with me on a certain subject, and I'll just start taking notes, basically, what he says, and maybe just be one sentence, maybe one word. And all of a sudden, the next day he'll give me something else, and I just start compiling these notes, if you will, these bullet points. And it's almost, Jeremiah said it's like a fire burning in his bones, and he just had to get the prophetic word out, so to speak. And it's kind of like that with me, but it's not. It's more like a pressure that builds, like a pressure cooker. And then I know when it's time to sit down and actually write out the prophetic word. When I can't take it anymore, I sit down, I put pen to paper, and then I start writing out what the Lord really wants to say with these bullet points, so to speak. And then he will move some things around, and it won't flow correctly. He'll say, okay, now I want you to move this here, move that there. And then when I go to type it out, he'll do some editing as well. That's kind of how it works with me.
Fantastic. So you're a retired firefighter. Tell us how the first prophecy came about. I know it affected your health, but share with us kind of how that came to be.
Sure. I'm a third-generation firefighter, but retired out as a lieutenant with the City of Orlando Fire Department. And I retired in 2006. In 2006, I got really bad. About 4 or 5 months after I retired, I got really bad sick. I was bedridden for 4 or 5 days at a time. I couldn't eat for 4 or 5 days at a time. I had anxiety, depression, all this stuff. I was at stations where we ran 12,000 calls a year out of that one fire station alone. A lot of cuttings, shootings, stabbings, that kind of thing. So I went to doctor after doctor. They couldn't figure out what was going on with me. The first doctor that I found after 5 years of searching found everything that was wrong with me in one shot. And I had a very low thyroid, had severe adrenal burnout, and I had the hormones of a 70-year-old at 39. So I was in pretty bad shape. And at the time, he got me back up. He pretty much saved my life, the first doctor did. And it was at that time, during April 28th, 2011, I'm watching TV one day because there was days I couldn't do anything, guys. I couldn't read. Nothing was going in. The brain fog was really bad. But I was sitting there in front of the TV, and I was listening to Donald Trump. And I knew Donald Trump was a very wealthy, powerful businessman. He built this billion-dollar empire, but I didn't know a lot of the details. And he was toying with the idea of running. So I'm listening to him, and all of a sudden I heard the voice of the Lord say, "You're hearing the voice of a president." And I came in here and into my converted office right here in my house, and I sat down like the Apostle Paul. I put pen to paper, and I started writing out what the Holy Spirit was telling me. And that was the Commander-in-Chief prophecy, which was about Donald Trump being elected president, and that was April 28, 2011.
Very good. Let me, so in that first prophecy, how did that, who were the first people, when you wrote that prophecy, who were the first people you shared that with? What was the reaction? And then we know it was extremely accurate. It was all about Trump's victory, but yeah, go back to just how was it received?
Well, at the time, I didn't have a platform at the time. I mean, I was still sick. I was still bad sick at the time. And I only, all my friends have pretty much abandoned me at the time. The guys I've been with the fire department, God had me in isolation for like 10 years, literally 10 years in my house. And so I had very limited people. I shared with a couple of friends, my family, of course. But I also shared it with that first doctor that I went to. And, again, he was toying with the idea of running. And then the prophecy, he says, it'll be like the shot heard around the world when he announces. Well, he never announced he was running. And I went back and I thought, because 2012 went to Obama, and I thought, well, Lord, did I miss this? And he says, no, Mark, you did not miss this. He says, this was all supposed to happen in 2012. He said, but my people were not ready. And he said they needed another 4 years of Obama and his administration to rise up and get a righteous anger and say enough is enough. Now, interestingly enough, when I prophesied the Commander-in-Chief prophecy about 4 months after that, I had, actually, what, even 4 months, like 2 or 3 months after that, I prophesied that another Triple Crown winner was coming. So I also thought that was going to be 2012. And when I coupled all this together, and the Lord was saying, no, that's not going to happen, and then, but there's another one coming. If you look at the horse that ran that year that was supposed to win in 2012, his name was Another One Coming. And I thought that was a strange name for a horse. And I thought, okay, Lord, what does that mean? He said, well, no, there's another one coming. I thought like another one, or something along those lines. And it said, but there's another horse that's coming. In other words, this has been delayed now because my people are not ready. So all this now happened in 2016. When you saw the Triple Crown win happen, June 6th, which was also D-Day, which goes along with the lines with the D-Day speech that I rewrote, General Eisenhower's D-Day speech that I rewrote to the Army of God. He said, I want you to address it to my Army of God. And I had laid all this stuff aside. I laid the Trump prophecy, the Great Horse prophecy, and the speech. I laid it all aside because I thought I'd missed it. And when the Lord had told me, no, it was for now, 2015, when the Triple Crown win happened, I was looking at the prophecy, and I heard the Lord say, release the speech. He said, what's this today? Today was D-Day. 10 days later, Donald Trump announces he's running for president. So I had all these three things come together in a 10-day period.
That is just amazing. So Mark, in your prophecy, Let My People Go, it's July 8th of 16, you mentioned that there would be several signs. And so I think you'd mentioned there'd be a shift, a lightning strike, and something to do with a monument. Can you share with the audience about that?
Yeah, I wrote that July 8th, 2016, Operation Let My People Go. He said, when Donald Trump is elected, a sign will be given. The earth shall quake because of who I have selected. It's a shift in the power structure that is taking place, and another sign will be given when it falls without grace. A lightning strike and a great wind shall topple the so-called great monument, and they will not be able to mend. It will be a sign that the Luciferian reign and ungodly powers are coming to an end. Now, here's the thing, and it goes on to talk about how the cabal and the Illuminati, that God's going to expose these guys and take them down. The sign that was given, it says when Donald Trump is elected, a sign will be given. 4 days after Donald Trump was elected, a sign was given. It said the earth shall quake. A massive earthquake took place in Christchurch, New Zealand. The last time Christchurch, New Zealand was decimated by an earthquake was about 4 months after the Trump prophecy was written.
Wow.
Now, Christchurch, New Zealand. Now, why was Christchurch, New Zealand shaking? Because that was a prophetic sign that there is a shaking coming to Christ's church. And they were waiting on a tsunami to come in, two waves of the tsunami. And I believe what that represented was the first wave was it going to be a mass exodus from the church. Because, judgment starts in the house of the Lord. And the church is under judgment right now. The leadership is under judgment, especially if they're in the systems. So that's the first part. The second part of that wave that was going to be coming in, I believe, will be the financial hit that they will take because of this mass exodus. You're going to see churches collapse. You're going to see them go under. You're going to see the corruption in the churches exposed. I have said from day one that the exposure of the corruption in the churches will parallel that of the political exposure. And you're seeing that taking place right now with the pedophilia, the sex trafficking, and people need to buckle up because it's going to get a whole lot worse. We have not even scratched the surface of what is coming as far as exposures are concerned, political and in the church.
Well, and that leads to the other prophecy about the 5 Supreme Court justices and Roe v. Wade will be overturned. Now, you said, if I'm correct, that 1 Supreme Court justice would die in office, 1 would retire, and 3 would be removed because of corruption.
Correct.
When did you give that word? And after you gave that word, wasn't about maybe a month later that Anthony Scalia died?
Well, I wrote that February 24th, 2016. I had not written the word yet. I had just told some people that, hey, God's told me 5 is coming. One's going to die, one's going to retire, 3 will be caught in a scandal. And it was like 2 months after that, because I had not completed writing this word yet, when Scalia died. Now, when Scalia died, God gave 2 signs at his funeral, because see, what was happening was they were trying to get a Supreme Court justice nominated in there before Obama left office. They were trying to get a liberal justice in there. And God said, no, that's not happening. This is going to be reserved for Donald Trump. And if you remember correctly, back to that time, the whole country was panicking because they thought they were going to ramrod a liberal justice through before he got out of office. Well, the 2 signs that were given, if you watch Scalia's funeral, at the bottom of the steps when they're carrying it was very quiet, it was very reverential. And so you hear this siren in the background. And as they're climbing the steps with his body, he gets to the top of the steps as the siren's fading away, and you hear this enormous train horn in the background. And what the Lord was saying was like, look, do not panic. Help is on the way, the siren, because this has been appointed and anointed for my anointed, the Trump train, basically, is what God was saying. And so I prophesied, when I put this prophecy out, February 24th, 2016, he was telling the people, do not fear, because this has been reserved for my anointed Donald Trump. He will appoint the 5 Supreme Court justices. And as that part of the prophecy came to pass, the day Donald Trump got confirmed. So, or inaugurated, rather. When he was inaugurated, that part of the prophecy came to pass. So 5 Supreme Court justices will be appointed. God will reform the court, and Roe versus Wade will be overturned.
You know, and it's interesting, when earlier this summer, when Justice Kennedy, it was announced that he would resign, CNN, literally within 24 hours, their top legal analysts said that Roe v. Wade would be overturned. So let me ask you this. In terms of those 3 Supreme Court justices that would be removed, do you think that's some type of corruption, or what do you think is kind of behind that? Yeah,
I believe there's some type of corruption. I believe that there's a number of things that could happen. That could be, it could be if they find out that Obama is a false president, he was not born here, everything he did is now null and void, which scratches 2 of those judges off the court immediately. And so I don't know if there's another judge that's involved. Now, here's the thing you have to watch with the prophetic. The prophetic are mysteries. You know, God says it's a matter of God to conceal a matter. It's a matter of, or the glory of God to conceal a matter, the glory of kings to search it out. So we have to search a matter out. And when these prophecies are written, they're mysteries a lot of times. A lot of times they don't mean what we think they mean. It's not until we see them come into pass that we go, oh, that's what that means. So when God says that 3 are going to be caught in a scandal, here's what we have to understand, is that we may not, as the general public, ever hear of the scandal. Because you talk about removing 3 Supreme Court judges. Look what's going on with Judge Kavanaugh right now.
Right.
I mean, it's almost starting civil war except for one judge. Can you imagine removing 3?
Well, and earlier today, I just checked the news, and now there's another woman that's coming out against Kavanaugh. Right. So the deep state is coming unglued. I mean, they're literally throwing everything they possibly can at Kavanaugh.
Right. Yeah. And so if you can imagine 3 being caught in a scandal and removing them, man, look out. So we may never hear of it. They may be forced to so-called retire, but it's actually scandal that's causing them to be forced to step down, if that makes sense. So that's where we have to be careful. So I do believe that's coming. So it could be a plethora of things. We've had so much corruption going on, it's not even funny. Now, on the Kavanaugh scene, I wanted to say that the reason you're seeing these people rise up like this has nothing to do with Roe versus Wade with this particular judge. And that's what they're disguising it as. You know, if you'll notice, Hillary Clinton tweeted out, she said that if Kavanaugh is confirmed, he's going to gut Roe versus Wade. Folks, that is not why they're concerned. They're masking it as Roe versus Wade. They are concerned that when Kavanaugh gets in, it will be a solid 5-4 vote for the military tribunals. These people will be tried for treason, and some of them will be executed. And that's why they're kicking and screaming. They know this. And why do you think that line of questioning came up with Lindsey Graham the other day when he asked, I'm paraphrasing, that, you know, hey, if a civilian commits treason, can they be charged under civil law or military law? And he said military law. That's sent a shockwave like an atomic bomb through the deep state, period. And that's why they're kicking and screaming over Kavanaugh.